Hi, I'm Chris from Cambridge in England, and I'm going to be showing how I used a compressor on one of my tracks to tidy up and even out the dynamics in one of the parts. I'm using Ableton Live 9 here, and I'll be using the built-in compressor. If you're using Live 8, it's one of the things Ableton upgraded in version 9, and I think the improvements are well worth it. Okay, so this is the session I'm going to be working with, and I'm going to be working with the bass guitar in particular. If we look at the waveform here, we can see a couple of places where I've played a note much louder than the rest of the phrase, and there's a couple of places as well where it's a bit quiet and the notes are a bit indistinct. If we play the track, we can hear these loud notes and also the places where the bass is a bit too quiet. So there, you can hear it's a bit too loud here, and there's a couple of places where the bass isn't quite clear. So to fix this, I'm going to reduce the dynamic range of the bass part using a compressor. I'll grab one from the audio effects here and just drop it into the track like that. The first thing I want to do is make sure I turn off this makeup gain here. This is the auto gain compensation on this compressor, and it makes setting the levels just that little bit harder, so I'll turn that off. The first thing I want to do is set the threshold correctly. So if I switch the compressor to this waveform view here, when I solo this track, we'll see the waveform scroll across here, which now means when I grab this threshold level and drag it down, I can set it so that the level is just about crossing the threshold, so about there. So that now means anything that's louder than that will get reduced by the compression. If I switch to this output view here now as well, we can see the dark grey here is the level coming into the compressor, and the light grey and the white line is the level that's going out. So we can see we're already getting some reduction, some squashing back towards this threshold level. If we turn the ratio up a little bit as well, just to get ourselves a little bit more compression on there, we can now see that these big peaks that we had before are being squashed back, and everything's now much more uniform in level. The other things we need to consider when setting a compressor are the attack and release times. Actually here it's pretty good. 2 milliseconds is probably about what we want. We're capturing the transients at the start of each note on the bass. If I turn it all the way down, we lose those transients, and the notes themselves, they pop less. There's sort of less of a punchy sound to the bass. So if we bring the attack back up to about 2 milliseconds, so we've got the punchiness back at the start of the note again, and we want to keep that. Again, the release is probably about right here. If we increase it a little bit, it'll just even out the compression, but I don't want to change that too much. About 100 milliseconds is probably fine. So that's pretty much everything set now. If we compare it to the original, however, we'll see that the apparent level is a little bit lower. So if we add a little bit of makeup gain to it here, about 4 dBs I think is probably about right. So now they seem about the same level, but we don't have those big peaks that we had in the original version. Everything's much more level, much more even in level. So if I unsolo the track and play the whole mix now, we should hear the bass is much more even. Those loud notes have been brought down in volume, and the quieter ones we weren't hearing so well can now be heard. And so that's it. That's an example of how I used a compressor on one of my tracks to tidy up the bass part. I hope that was useful, and thanks for watching.